Welcome to Aunt Debbie's Boutique. Today we are going to continue on with the same project we worked on last time, which was a pillowcase. Now, this is going to be just a little more advanced method of sewing a pillowcase, where we do enclosed seams. However, there's nothing better about this pillowcase than the one we did last time. So if after watching this it intimidates you, just put it aside and go on to the next project, which will be coming out very soon. And when you have honed your skills better, you might want to go back and try this. I'm only doing this so I can teach some of the more advanced seamstresses a little more advanced techniques. What the difference in the one we made last time and this time is going to be is enclosed seams. So if you look at the inside of the other pillowcase, you will see the raw edges. They're on the inside. Nobody cares. But when it's washed, it will ravel a little. You can probably see there's some strings here. But it's not going to hurt the overall construction or the overall use of this pillowcase. So what we're going to do this time is we're going to sew a technique so that all of our seams are enclosed and there's no way they can ravel. They're called French seams for the most part. Now, you're going to have to follow the first video to get the instructions on how to cut it out and how to iron it properly to begin sewing, because it's exactly the same. Or you can purchase in my Etsy shop an already cut out kit that is not only cut out, but it's already ironed the proper way. And it comes with the instructions on how to do the basic pillowcase like we learned last time. It does not have the instructions on how to do the enclosed seams, so you will have to watch the video in order to do that. Okay, we want to begin by laying our pillowcase out, and we want to make sure and look at our pattern and make sure we have the top side up if it's a directional fabric. This, let's see, I think this may look better this way. Yes, see, so all the leaves are pointing down and the flowers are pointing up. I believe that's the top of this fabric. Now we're going to begin just like we did on the last one, where we will lay this folded border strip with the raw edges to the raw edges right across the top here. And then we're going to take our larger border piece, and last time we laid it like this. This time it's going to be slightly different, and we're going to open it out so that we only catch one seam, one edge in our seam. So I'm going to pin that. Try to match the middles. And the edges. Make sure they all line up and pin it a few times in between, just so none of our edges sag down. Like, see how that wants to sag down? We're going to make sure it's all lined up. I think I'll put one more pin. And we'll come to this end. Do the same thing. Kind of give it a little tug to make sure everything is pinned equally and nothing gathers or puckers on us. Okay, now we're ready to make our seam. And we are going to do, just like last time, a 1/4 inch seam all the way down. So now let's go to the sewing machine. I have a neutral colored thread on here. I have an organ needle size 9. I would show you that if I knew where I put the case. But it is an organ needle size 9 for this. You can use a matching thread, or you could use a contrasting thread, or you can use a neutral thread. Just whatever's what you want. Now, I'm going to line my presser foot, just because this is a 1/4 inch on this particular presser foot. Make sure you have one that is a 1/4 inch there. I'm going to line it up. And I'm going to begin to sew, taking a couple stitches forward and then going back a couple stitches. I do have my stitch length on about 3. It can be anywhere from 2 to 3 in that range. Pull out the pins as we go, because we do not want to hit one and break it, have it fly up and into our face, or to get our sewing machine out of whack. That's a technical term. When I get to the end, I'm going to back stitch a couple and then go forward again. I'll cut my thread there and at the beginning while I remember it. A lot of times I forget, and then I have all these strings. Okay, now let's take it back over to the cutting board, and I'll show you where to go from here. Now we're going to do something that's called a burrito method to enclose this seam. And this is probably the hardest part of the whole thing, but it's not hard at all. It's just a little confusing. We want to lay it back down just like we had it pinned, with the right side of the fabric up, our small border sandwiched in there, and this right side of the fabric is down. And now we're going to start at the bottom, and we're going to roll this up loosely, but not too big, because you don't want it to get real bulky. Okay, we're going to roll it all the way to the top, and then we're going to drape this over, and what we're making is a burrito with it all rolled up in there. Then we're going to have this right side against this wrong side, but we're going to line them up and pin it all the way across. Kind of find my middle here somewhere. And okay, now if you'll look closely, you can see the stitching from our last stitch. We're going to put it back under the machine and we're going to stitch right on top of that stitching, as close as we can be. We don't want to get on this side of the stitching. If we accidentally go off just a little, you want it to be on this side, just so your first stitch line doesn't show when you flip it over. Okay, let's go back to the machine. Okay, once again, we're going to go forward a couple of stitches, backwards, and then we want to stay. Okay, rookie recorder alert. I ran out of memory card. So you can tell I'm a newbie at this. So I apologize you didn't get to see me stitch this seam, but I stitched right on top of the last seam, all the way down. Now we have this roll of fabric that doesn't look anything like a pillowcase, and we want to turn it inside out. So you're going to reach inside here and grab the body of the pillowcase, and you're just going to, I hold it in my seam out here, you're just going to keep pulling it until you pull it inside out. It's a little bit awkward, but it will come out. Okay, we've now turned it all the way out. Flip it over to the right side, and even though it's wrinkly, we have our border on. And on the wrong side, if you will look, we cannot see the seam. It's inside this little border piece. Okay, let's iron it real good, and then we'll finish it up. Now we have an enclosed seam, no raw edges, And I'm going to go in here and top stitch on this side. Last time we top stitched over here because we were holding a seam down. But our seam is pointing up now. You can look on the inside and see that seam in there. So I'm going to top stitch right on top of this, just real close, like 1/8 of an inch from the seam. So let's do that. And it's best to do it from the top instead of the bottom because that's the part you'll see and you want to make sure it's the straightest. So I'm just going to I'm going to use the inside of my presser foot to use as a guide. Just find something you can line it up with. And this does not have to be back stitched since it's just a top stitching. But if you can see, I don't know how well you can see this, but the top stitching is just right there by the edge, and it's going to make this lay nice and flat. Okay, let's put our final seams in. Okay, when we made the regular pillowcase then, we put the right sides together, and we sewed around the last 2 edges. But what we're going to do a French seam now. And that is going to be 2 seams that encloses it. So we're going to put the wrong sides together. And I'm going to see if I can do a better job than I did in the last video of matching right there our borders match there at the edge. And then pin it at the top. Then at the bottom, giving it a little tug. A few places in the middle. If you can see, this doesn't look like it was cut perfectly straight. I'm going to trim that up just a little bit. Could use the rotary cutter, but I'm just going to use some scissors. Okay, that's a little better. Now let's go and let's do the bottom. Okay, we're going to go over to the machine now, and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch again right next to the edge and all the way across the bottom. So line my presser foot, get my strings behind me, my thread, line my presser foot up on the edge, take out the pin, take a couple of stitches forward, couple back. And we really want to tack this because this seam will get a lot of pull on it. So we want to make sure that we back stitch on this one. And then all the way down. Okay, when I get to the edge, I'm going to stop about a 1/4 inch, turn with the needle still down. We lift the presser foot and turn it and sew across the bottom. No need to back stitch there because you didn't break your stitch. Okay, you do back stitch at the end of that. We're going to clip our threads here and here, and I'm going to trim a few of these just so they don't get in the way. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is trim this seam pretty close. And I like to do it with pinking shears. That's these zigzag looking scissors. And this is a pair of Fiskars. They're not that expensive if you want to buy one at your local big box store or order them from Amazon. But they will help us. One of the good things about them is it prevents raveling to some degree. So I'm just going to go down here and cut, and I don't know if you can see, but just leaving the point just about 1/8 of an inch away from this seam. If you don't have this pair of scissors, that's fine. You can use regular scissors. Just trim it about 1/8 of an inch from the seam. Okay, when we've trimmed that now, we're going to turn our pillowcase inside out, outside in, no, inside out. Well, let's take it back over here and iron it. I like to kind of iron it open like this because I think it makes a crisper seam then when you go put the real crease in it. And you will notice I do lots of ironing as I sew. I'm kind of fanatical about it, but it makes such a big difference in your final product that I think a lot of times people do a good job of sewing, but they don't iron as they go, and so their finished product has kind of a homemade look to it, and that's what we want to avoid. Handmade is good, homemade is not. So, ironing these seams flat, and then I'm going to iron them again. Make sure I get this turned all the way. I might have to put my hand in here to get a nice clean point. And since we trimmed those with the pinking shears, there's not a lot of bulk in there, so they're easier to trim. Okay. Now, We're going to iron this. Right on our seam. Now we are going to go back and sew this exact 2 seams again, going in 1/4, maybe 3/8 of an inch. We just want to make sure we get it wide enough that it doesn't pop out when we turn it back. That's why we trimmed it to 1/8 of an inch, is so it wouldn't stick out on the inside of it when we make our seam. So I'm going to do between 1/4 and 3/8 inch. Just 3/8 gives you a little bit of a safety factor, but technically if you trimmed it to an 1/8 inch, it shouldn't. A 1/4 inch should be enough. Okay, get our threads behind us. Get everything lined up. Once again, we want to make sure we go forward a couple of stitches and backwards a couple of stitches, because this is where there's going to be the most tug on the seam. Get to the end, back stitch, and go forward again. Trim our threads there and at the beginning. And now our pillowcase is through. We can turn it right side out and iron it really good. Iron it first, and then we'll look at our seams. We want to make sure none of it is sticking out. And I don't see any because we trimmed it. If we hadn't trimmed it, some of it would have been sticking out here. But because we trimmed it and maybe made our seam slightly bigger, we don't have any of the edges showing. If you get to this point and you do have some edges showing out of that, go back and just take a little bit bigger seam and that'll fix it. You don't have to rip anything out. Okay, and look at how good I matched the seam that time. I like that. And let's look at our seams now on the inside. You see that? No raw edges. The raw edges are folded inside that. So we have no raw edges there. no raw edges here, so there's no place it can ravel. So you have just sewn an advanced pillowcase. Let's fold it nice and neat here in thirds. Uh-oh, what happened here? Got it. In thirds again. And there we go, our finished product. Thank you for joining me today. If you've enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. It helps me boost my channel and be able to offer more projects. And next time we will be making a child's apron. Sorry for the barking. It will be very simple child's apron. So next week, look for that video. And just remember, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters. From Colossians 3:23. Thank you.